much, Linda. I won't be shouting because I've had a virus for 2 weeks and I've nearly lost my voice, which I know Brendan was keeping his fingers crossed. But I do want to make a few points following on from some of the brilliant speeches that we heard on the top table. And really it's about how we're going to turn the debate that we're having in the conference hall into the reality of getting to mass coordinated industrial action and getting there sooner rather than later. I want to start though by congratulating the organisers. I mean, I've been coming to TUC for ages. This is a fantastic turnout on the march, and people should be really proud of the efforts that they've made to come here today to let the TUC know what you and your members think. And anyone who thinks lobbies are a waste of time and nobody takes any notice, I'll say now what I said at the turn of the year. When we had that dark day when the TUC agreed to essentially call off the pension strike action at the end of last year, it was the fact that there was hundreds of people lobbying outside, shouting, putting pressure on, that absolutely helped stiffen the resolve of those who were inside the meeting, arguing to keep up the fight. So don't let anyone ever try to demoralise you by saying there's no point, they won't listen, because as far as I'm concerned, the more lobbies, the more demonstrations, and the more pressure we keep on within our unions, the better it is going to be to get to the end result. So well done to the organisers, both for now and at the turn of the year. The thing that I think is important for us to get across here is that the debates we're going to have up the road starting later on tonight have got to be injected with the sense of urgency that every trade union member, person living in a community, public service user, welfare state recipient knows exists. We haven't got the time to debate long, worthy composites and wonder about whether they're going to be implemented sometime next year. The urgency is absolute. Because whilst we're meeting here, millions of people are seeing the welfare state eroded before their eyes. Disabled people are having their benefits cut or being thrown off disability benefits. 450,000 public sector workers will lose their jobs in the next 2 years. Pay is now, as a result of the government's pay freezes, mean that people's living standards have dropped to an extent that they haven't since the 1930s. If you add into that we believe we are on the verge of some of the biggest privatisations of public services this country will ever have seen, and it must tell us all that we have not got time to wait. We've got to get on with it, and we've got to turn the resolutions into action, and we've got to have the widest based industrial action as soon as possible. And the PCS view is quite clear, that the best way to defeat the government is to have mass coordinated action of the public and private sector, a general strike, as soon as we can get it to We can't sit around and do nothing while we hope to persuade some of our more reluctant comrades. I know I agree usually with everything Steve has said, but I can't honestly say I have full respect for every member of the General Council. So that's another matter. But I think what we've got to try and get across is that there will be efforts made to not let any of this happen. People are going to try and dampen it down. People are going to say we've got to play the long game. And we have got to make sure that they feel the hot breath of the activists across our movement that we haven't got time to wait. And so PCS will make those arguments, but we will be doing other things in the meantime. We have already agreed a series of disputes across our union, which I want to say something about in a minute, that mean people are striking in government departments and winning in some cases. We've already agreed as a union that the political situation is so diabolical that our members voted by over 80% to give us the endorsement that we could stand or support candidates in national elections in exceptional circumstances. We're doing it because we have to, and we're doing it because we know if we do not win, then generations to come will look back on this period as the one where the working class were defeated, where we lost things we have taken for granted for decades, and where the society and the communities that we live become absolutely bleaker places. So against that backdrop, what I think we have to get across is that in the toughest of circumstances, we are seeing people who are fighting and who are winning. Let me give you 2 examples in PCS. Our members in HMRC have taken industrial action, voted for further strikes, and as a result, directly as a result, 1,000 extra jobs have been created in HMRC. Our members in the Home Office were subjected to an onslaught and barrage of abuse that I think was unprecedented in this country since the miners' strike, because they had the audacity to say they would strike the day before the Olympics. The result, 1,100 extra full-time public sector jobs in the Home Office. And that goes to show what we've done. It also goes to show how much they fear us taking action. Cast your mind back to the run-up to this strike. We had calls in the press for a change of legislation. We had a call for the government to introduce a state of emergency and sack any civil servant who went on strike. We had journalists arguing for a change in the law to forbid public sector strikes unless more than 50% of the members voted for them. There was an incredible effort to try and cow people into not taking strike action, but to give up the fight. And our members stood absolutely firm. And I tell you what, when this happens, some of the crazies come out of the woodwork. The hate mail we got in PCS, absolutely incredible. But I'll share with you the one that I still rank as my favourite. It was someone who wrote to say, as far as they were concerned, PCS and me in particular were terrorists, we were filth who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as normal people, we should be sent to North Korea, and it gets worse and worse, but it ends with the unforgettable line, I call on you to go now, and take the leaders of Unison with you. Some things are even too much for me to bear. The point was that in these areas we've won really important gains, so it shows it can be done. But to defeat the government, we need mass coordinated action. And I want to finish really with this point. That we hope the POA motion is carried and we can get on to talking about it as soon as we can. We also understand that whilst that's happening, we've got to do what we can. So I want to make clear that the PCS's executive has already decided that if the teachers' unions call strikes in the autumn, we will call a meeting to join that strike action. Imagine if October the 20th was followed immediately by a mass coordinated strike. It would send shockwaves through the government, and it's something that we should aim to do. But comrades, we know there are those who don't agree with us. I can tell you at the General Council last week, when we were debating the general strike, one leader of a union said, and I quote, he wasn't against the general strike just because it was illegal. He wasn't against the general strike because he didn't think it was the right thing to do. He disagreed on principle because we were trying to subvert the will of the British people and overturn their democratic will of the election. I won't name him, but I will say that he's the leader of the top civil service union. My point here is that what we've got to say is this. The government have no mandate to do the things that they're doing. None of us should make false arguments about democracy when we're in the class battle of our lives. And when they come for us, when they unleash all the forces of the state, our job is to resist and go on the offensive. And comrades, I'll leave you with this thought. George Osborne roundly booed at the Paralympics. This morning we're hearing about stalking horses and Boris Johnson prepared to challenge the Prime Minister. Now that tells me the Tories are having some internal difficulties. The greatest thing we could do on behalf of the people of this country is when they're down, kick them.